Another Ontario minister resigns. I'm Marco Perry. Welcome to the Perry Platform. CP24 reports that Ontario's Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery has resigned from his cabinet position and the Progressive Conservative caucus after records show contradicting encounters and reports of a Las Vegas trip. This was investigated by the province's Integrity Commissioner. And this MPP, his name is Khalid Rasheed. Personally, like many of you, I have a very low tolerance for corruption in politics. These are people who are supposed to be serving us, the people, but obviously they have forgotten that mission and they're looking to serve their own interest. When citizens lose faith in institutions, it's because of stories like this. The Integrity Commissioner, J. David Wake, reviewed the trip as part of the investigation into Housing Minister Steve Clark's handling of the Greenbelt. Now, keep in mind Steve Clark also resigned last week due to alleged corruption when it came to the dealing of the Greenbelt land. Now we have a second minister who's resigning in relation to that. A minister is a high-ranking government official. These are not nobodies. And to have them dropping like flies in relation to the Greenbelt scandal, it tells you how bad things really were. They wouldn't be resigning otherwise. So why did the Integrity Commissioner review this trip? Well, they say there was an allegation that a government minister and staffer went to Las Vegas with a developer who would be interested in the Greenbelt land. According to the Integrity Commissioner, the parties involved, which were Rasheed, the previous minister, and then the principal secretary to Premier Doug Ford together, Amin Moussoudi, said they took a trip in December 2019 and quote-unquote exchanged pleasantries with developer Shakir Ramatula in the lobby of a hotel. Rasheed told the Integrity Commissioner that he is friends with Ramatula, but did not know that he was going to be in Vegas at that same time. Now, Ramatula is a developer, yes, and he's the founder of Flato Development, a company listed as the owner of two of the sites removed from the Greenbelt. Now this is where things get interesting. Records show that the minister actually went on that trip in February 2022. So, just to recap, he told the commissioner submitted documents that they went in 2019, before the Greenbelt became a big thing. And that was their cover. But upon investigation, it turns out no. He actually went in 2022. Very much so when the Greenbelt was being divided up. Now, these three people, the minister, the public staffer, and the developer, also got massages at the same time. And that's according to 3 hotel staffers who were interviewed. So, it turns out no. You went at the wrong time, compared to what you stated. And it wasn't a simple meeting in the lobby. You guys went out and did stuff, like get some nice massages. Now, when caught up in that confusion, the minister then comes back and says that, oh, you know what, the trip was originally planned for 2019, but it got rescheduled due to scheduling conflicts. 3 years down the road, apparently. And the original timeline for the trip, that was a mistake. We shared that with you by accident. We wanted to share the 2022 date and all that information, but that's our bad. Do you believe that? Does anyone believe that? Now, in a statement issued last week, Rasheed said that he made the decision to resign as not to distract from the important work of the government. Now, that sounds quite familiar. I think that Stephen Clark, the previous Minister of Housing, also said the same thing when he got caught up in an ethics probe and scandal. Do you really think that these people are resigning as to not distract from the important work of the government? I find that laughable. It's corporate talk. That's probably what their lawyers advise them to say. It's pretty obvious to me that it's more likely they're resigning because there is some meat to the accusations, and if they remain in power, they're going to be forced to resign or fired later by Doug Ford when the actual details of this corruption comes to light. So instead of doing that and disgracing themselves, they're taking a step back. They're going to hope that the light of the probe shines away from them now that they have resigned, and they can carry on, because they're afraid of the details of what went down here. And I'm sure Doug Ford's wrapped up in all this too. This really is an embarrassment. If it wasn't clear before, we're dealing with a full-on scandal. The Premier of Ontario and his ministers were obviously favoring certain developers when it came to the dividing of Greenbelt land. You can't do that as a government. You cannot pick favorites or your buddies in the private sector to benefit. It's astounding that I even have to make these claims. It really speaks to the character of the people that we've elected. The current state of Ontario politics is depressing. Doug Ford and the Conservatives are a mess. They are obviously corrupt. They're obviously favoring people who they prefer and breaking many ethics, norms, and rules. Based on that, many people would ask, well, why is Doug Ford even in power still? Well, it's because competition is extremely weak. The Liberal Party doesn't even have a leader. They got destroyed so badly in the previous election that they barely maintained party status, if they did. I can't quite remember that. The NDP, they lost her leader. She abandoned ship to become the mayor of Hamilton. These parties are all a sham. Nobody really believes in their message. That's what I'm getting from this. You have career politicians who are viewing this simply as a job, simply as a means to progress themselves and those around them, not people who are dedicated to public service and who want to make a positive change in Ontario. I don't believe any of the provincial parties and leaders have much weight when it comes to integrity. The only reason why Doug Ford's still in power is because there's no viable alternative. Who are you going to vote for? The corpse of the Liberal Party? The NDP? No. We need options, and we need competent leaders who are going to have some respect for themselves and our province. My unsolicited advice to the Liberal Party is to nominate somebody who is a centrist, somebody who is not too far left, somebody who can bring people together, and somebody who people can believe in. If you can accomplish that, you're easily going to defeat Doug Ford in the next election cycle. But I'm not too sure they have the competency to pull that off, or even the candidates to run. It's my belief that the people of Ontario are just fed up. They're fed up with corruption. They're fed up with culture war nonsense. They have some very real issues like cost of living, like housing, like transportation, like drug addiction. Real issues that really matter to everyone. But our politicians are busy getting caught up in scandals and debating crazy stuff. We need to bring some level of seriousness back to politics. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. How can we achieve that? I do think it'll be something of a long process, but there are things we can do now to encourage a positive change. First of all, we have to encourage the right people to run. If individuals like these MPs who will resign continue to have positions in Parliament, that's your fault, because you have voted for them. There should be no way in hell that Steve Clark or Khalid Rasheed win another seat in their career. They've already sullied themselves. Even if they represent the Conservative Party, and that's who you want to vote for, you shouldn't vote for these individuals. You have to make the message very clear. The leaders of these parties cannot staff the delegates with people who have no integrity. If you choose to do that, you're going to lose your seat. In other words, we have to hold the politicians accountable. We have to make it very clear what matters to us, the voters. It seems like we've become too complacent, and because of that, we're being taken advantage of. Now, along this same train of thought, it would be amazing if we could shed party partisanship entirely. There's no reason why somebody should be a die-hard conservative voter or a die-hard liberal voter. There's always going to be issues with parties eventually. They will either go too far left, too far right, not do anything, become incompetent, become corrupt. And if you still support them in spite of that, you're going to just enable them. They have to know that your allegiance is not to them, to the party, but it's to things like good policy, to things like good idea, to things like tackling real issues, to things like having good character. And if they can't show that, they're going to be decimated at the polls. They're going to lose their job. If we continue to not enforce our values on political entities, we're going to get what we deserve. Have your voice heard, get involved in politics, and make sure that we're holding people accountable to the high standards that we deserve. And with that, it does bring us to the end of our conversation for today. If you enjoyed the material, be sure to leave a review and share. They'll help us grow. And you can find me online at perryplatform.org and on social media at perryplatform. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.